Imagine a land where the ice is 10,000 years old, hiding secrets that could trigger the next global conflict. Beneath the shimmering, crystalline permafrost of the world's largest island, a dark game of geopolitical chess is being played, and the stakes are nothing less than total Arctic dominance. This isn't just a frozen wasteland, it is a ticking time bomb of sovereignty, greed, and military necessity. Welcome to Greenland, the most coveted piece of real estate on the planet that is officially not for sale. But in the shadows of international diplomacy, no is often just a starting point for a much more dangerous conversation. The tension began to boil over when whispers turned into headlines. The United States wanted to buy Greenland. It sounds like something from a colonial history book, a relic of the era of manifest destiny, but in the modern age, it is a provocation that has sent shockwaves from Copenhagen to Moscow. To understand the danger, you have to understand the geography. Greenland is the ultimate crossroads. To the west lies the American mainland and Canada, to the east, the heart of Europe, and to the north, across the shifting ice of the Arctic Ocean, sits Russia. Whoever holds this island holds the kill switch for the northern hemisphere. History tells us that this land was claimed by the blood of Vikings. Eric the Red, a man exiled for murder, sought refuge here and named it Greenland, a grand marketing ploy to lure settlers to a place that was mostly white. For centuries, it was a pawn in Scandinavian power struggles. Norway had it, then shared it with Denmark, until the Napoleonic Wars tore the two nations apart. In the messy divorce of empires, Denmark walked away with the frozen prize. But the ghosts of the past never truly stayed buried. Norway tried to reclaim the eastern shores in the early 20th century, leading to a high-stakes showdown at the international court that left Denmark as the undisputed master of the ice. But that mastery was about to be challenged by a new, hungrier empire. When the shadows of Nazi Germany stretched across Europe in World War II, Denmark fell. In that moment of weakness, the United States saw its opening. Under the guise of protection, American boots hit the Greenlandic snow. They built fortresses of steel and radar, turning the silent fjords into high-tech outposts to watch for German U-boats and later, Soviet missiles. By 1946, President Truman made the first move to buy the island for $100 million in gold. Denmark refused. They said the island was not a commodity. But the seed of American ambition was planted, and it has been growing in the dark ever since. Today, the relationship between Denmark and its frozen territory is a fragile web of autonomy and dependence. Greenland is self-governing, but its defense and foreign policy are still tethered to Copenhagen. It is a relationship defined by a unilateral divorce clause that is a legal nightmare. Greenland can leave, but only if Denmark agrees to the terms. It's a marriage held together by a prenuptial agreement written in ice. And into this domestic dispute steps the United States, once again offering a checkbook that is too big to ignore, but with strings attached that could pull the entire NATO alliance apart. The island itself is a landscape of alien beauty and terrifying isolation. Over 2 million square kilometers of land, nearly 7 times the size of Vietnam, yet it has no roads connecting its towns. The terrain is dominated by the fjords, deep, narrow bays carved by ancient glaciers that slice through the mountains like jagged wounds. These fjords are so deep and the mountains so steep that building bridges is a financial impossibility. To get from city to city, you don't drive, you sail through waters filled with crystalline icebergs that reflect light like diamonds, or you fly over a central ice sheet that is several kilometers thick. It is a place where nature still rules with an iron, freezing fist. For the people who live there, the Greenlandic Inuit, the land is their soul. They have survived on hunting and fishing for thousands of years, moving across the ice with dog sleds that remain the most reliable form of transport in the interior. They are Danish citizens with one of the most powerful passports in the world, yet many choose a life of extreme simplicity. They don't want to be a pawn in an American game. They don't want their pristine wilderness turned into a strip mine for rare earth minerals. When the world talks about developing Greenland, the locals hear a different word: destruction. The lure of the island isn't just its location, it's what lies beneath the melting ice. As the planet warms, the permafrost is beginning to give up its treasures. Rare earth minerals, the lifeblood of modern technology and military hardware, are buried in massive quantities. Gold, diamonds, and oil are rumored to be waiting. The corporate vultures are circling, waiting for the ice to recede so they can tear into the earth. But the cost of this wealth is the death of an ecosystem. Digging for minerals in Greenland isn't like digging in the desert, it's a surgical strike against a global climate regulator. If the ice melts, the world drowns. If the mines open, the soul of the island dies. This creates a terrifying conflict of interest. The United States argues that if they don't control these resources, China or Russia will. They frame it as a matter of national security. But to the rest of the world, it looks like a land grab. If the US were to use its weight to force a sale or encourage a clandestine secession, it would set a precedent that would shatter the international order. If a superpower can simply buy or bully a territory away from an ally, then the concept of sovereignty is dead. The critics say that in his pursuit of Greenland, the American leadership is starting to look less like a protector and more like the very expansionist powers they claim to oppose. Imagine the scenario: Greenland declares independence from Denmark in a move orchestrated in the backrooms of Washington. Within hours, the US recognizes the new state and moves in a massive military presence to ensure stability. This would be a Crimea-style move that would leave NATO in ruins. How could Denmark remain an ally after such a betrayal? The alliance that has kept the peace since 1949 would evaporate, leaving Europe vulnerable and the Arctic a lawless frontier. It is a gamble that puts the entire world at risk for a few thousand miles of ice and a handful of minerals. And then there is the Russian shadow. Moscow is not watching this from the sidelines. They have their own Arctic ambitions, building ice-breaking fleets and military bases that dwarf anything the West has in the region. But the idea of a Russian invasion of Greenland is a logistical fantasy. To invade Greenland, you have to cross thousands of miles of open, hostile ocean, all under the watchful eye of NATO's early warning systems. The island is protected not by a large army, but by the sheer impossibility of its terrain. You can't land tanks on a fjord. You can't march an infantry through 3 kilometers of vertical ice. The only way to take Greenland is from the inside, through the hearts and minds of its people or the wallets of its politicians. The Americans have a plan to win those hearts: statehood. The 51st state proposal is the only way to make a deal work without it looking like a colonial theft. If Greenland became a state, its citizens would have more power than they do now. They would have 2 seats in the US Senate and a seat in the House. For a population of only 56,000 people, that is an incredible amount of leverage. It would make a Greenlandic voter the most powerful person in the United States. But this is exactly why the US Congress would likely kill the deal. Giving 2 Senate seats to a tiny, remote population would upset the delicate balance of American power. It's a political non-starter that leaves only the darker, more coercive options on the table. As the geopolitical temperature rises, the physical temperature of the island continues to shift. The ice is melting, and as it does, it reveals the ancient remains of a world we never knew. But it also reveals our own greed. The whales, the polar bears, and the seals that call this place home are being caught in the crossfire of human ambition. We watch the killer whales hunt seals on drifting ice floes, a brutal display of natural instinct, and we fail to see the irony. We are the apex predators now, circling an island, waiting for the right moment to strike, not for food, but for power. The reality of Greenland is a paradox. It is a place of profound silence that is the subject of the loudest arguments in the world. It is a land of permanent ice that is the epicenter of a warming planet. And it is a nation that wants to be left alone but finds itself at the very center of the struggle for the future of the Northern Hemisphere. The people of Greenland say their land is not for sale, but the history of the world is written by those who ignore such proclamations. In the end, the battle for Greenland isn't just about a piece of land. It is a test of our civilization. Can we respect the sovereignty of a small people, or will we allow the hunger for resources and strategic depth to override our values? If we treat the world as a map to be redrawn at the whim of the powerful, we invite a future of chaos. The fjords of Greenland are deep, but the ambitions of men are deeper. And as the ice continues to thin, the dark reality of our global struggle is being laid bare for all to see. The ice doesn't care about treaties or mineral rights, it only knows how to melt or to freeze. And right now, the world is feeling the chill of a new Cold War, with Greenland right at the heart of the frost. We must look at Greenland not as a trophy to be won, but as a sanctuary to be preserved. The rare earth minerals can stay in the ground. The military bases can remain within their legal bounds. The State 51 dream can remain a footnote in a history of what-ifs. Because if we break Greenland, we break the fragile peace that has held the Arctic in check for generations. We are all passengers on this planet, and the ice of the North is our collective shield. If we let that shield become a sword, there will be no winners, only a vast, frozen silence that no amount of gold can ever fill. The world is watching the ice. The world is watching the shadows. And the world is waiting to see if we have the wisdom to leave the last great wilderness alone.